Today's tutorial for you is how to use a pen and wash technique to paint this lovely looking butterfly. I'll show you plenty of tips and tricks along the way, especially how to use a waterproof pen. So get those pens ready and also those watercolours, and let's get started on this painting. Let's start off by using the black and white photograph, as you can see in the corner there, or grayscale if you wish. That just emits any colour whatsoever, doesn't it? Just means you can see all the tonal values within the photograph. The pen I'm going to use today is one by Pilot. It's a drawing pen. It's a waterproof pen as well. In other words, when we apply the watercolour over the top, which is all this lot here, you find that that ink will not run. So if you use normal biro, yeah, it will run. But it also depends on how you use that pen as well. So all I tend to do is show you a couple of techniques. Lot. When you got your pen at this sort of angle, I don't know if you're right-handed, you'll have it that way around, I don't know. That sort of angle, what you'll need to do, if you use just a gentle pressure, you get just a single line like that. That's a nice dark line and nice and fine as well. However, if you tilt that pen down at an angle, so in other words, something like, so look, that sort of angle there, maybe that one. You find, if I just hold it this way, you find that you start to graze the tip of the pen, and eventually, if you get the angle just right, you can achieve some very light marks, as you can see there, very fine. And these light marks are ideal for the edge of the wings, and also those very pale areas. And that's all by changing the angle of the pen, that's it. So they're the two techniques I'll be using initially for drawing this out. Now, around the edge is very faint, isn't it? So I'm going to angle that pen down, once again. Really angle it down, just catching the tip, or the edge of the tip, should I say, really. And look at the patterns we can see. Just bring it up a little bit around the edge of that wing. Very faint. Work on the lightest tones first of all. But it's amazing how you can actually draw light tones with, well, a single colour. That's all it is, isn't it? Just one single colour ink. All by angling that pen slightly differently. So very lightly, go over the pencil marks you've already got in your drawing. As you can see, I've got it all drawn out, ready to go. When you work on the inside areas, they're a little bit darker in places. But initially what I'm going to do, I'm going to stipple. And all stippling is, if you've never stippled before, is this sort of thing like that. The closer the dots are together, the darker the area will be, of course. So if I start off really pale at the top like that, and then bring them dots closer together gradually as I work my way down, you find eventually it will turn, well, virtually black. Really dark indeed. See what I mean? Just by adding tiny, tiny dots everywhere. And that's basically stippling. Yeah, I know. So we can stipple certain areas that need it. For example, you find that around the flower down there. But on the wing, I'm going to stipple around the outside edge first of all. And then, once I stipple that out, I'll fill those in with tiny, tiny lines, directional lines as well. You have to make sure that those lines do go in the right direction, which will help shape the butterfly, or in this case, shape the wing. So stipple around the edges, like that. Take your time with it, there's no rush. Very lightly, using the side of the pen, sketch out some of the shapes you can see, go over those pencil marks, and then this area here, I'll show you this one, before I speed the video up a little bit more. Use tiny lines, in the correct direction of course. So they're aiming towards the body, aren't they? Tiny, tiny lines like that. These aren't dark enough yet, but they will be soon. I'm going to ensure they're a little bit darker in places. And all we do to make them darker, you know what to do now, of course you do. You angle the pen back up a little bit more. I don't use a great deal of pressure either, just use the weight of the pen. You don't want to damage the nib of that pen. I've seen that happen so many times with people where the nib's completely flattened out and you lose that fine point. So just use the weight of the pen, hardly any pressure, that's all you need when you apply these marks. You'll also find as well, where you got the line coming down here, it's a little bit darker, isn't it? So I can afford to bring that pen even higher, not vertical though. But then you want to darken the lower section. Don't just fill it in though, leave plenty of gaps in between. Just a small area down there like that. And that's all you need to do. Have a look on the market and see what other pens you can find. There's plenty of good quality ones out there. But remember that you need waterproof inks. If it's not, then that's fine for the pen and ink technique. But if you want to go for the pen and wash or pen and watercolour, whichever way you want to say it, then you need to make sure that the ink is certainly waterproof. Otherwise you'll end up with one very blurry mess. The paper I'm using today is cold pressed. I do prefer to use cold pressed paper because you got a bit of a texture to the paper surface compared to hot pressed. Hot pressed paper is really good for fine detail, of course, hence very popular for botanical work. So people very often ask me, Paul, why don't you use hot pressed paper for that? I like the texture, I really do. I also find that when you add the watercolour over the top, especially when you're working with a full-blown painting, just watercolour painting, that the paint seems to soak into the paper a little bit more. It doesn't float on the surface. Not quite as much. I also find I can blend the paint easier as well. But I have used hot pressed paper in the past, and I probably still will again in the future. So cold pressed 300 GSM, £140. That's what I'm using today. And these calendars were supplied by Paul Rubens. So a big thank you for that. As you can see, it's something completely different. It's quite nice as well to be able to do a painting per month, and also for the species or wildlife that you see within that month. This beautiful little butterfly is called a Grizzled Skipper. It's one of those butterflies that tend to appear early around April and May time, and not something we see every day either, but they are around the UK in different locations. Once those darkest colours are on, then all I need to think about, just add a few lighter marks in between them. Not many though. We need to leave plenty of space for the colours that we'll be applying over the top. If you add too much ink on, you will find that any colour washes you place over the top will look far too dark. So be careful with that. Do note that some of the lines in certain areas go in different directions. Really? I know. For example, here you can see they go more like an arrow. So this angle goes down that way, that angle goes up that way. So you've got a sort of a blurry central line down the middle there. Nearly invisible, isn't it? So you're creating more of an arrow shape by looking at where these marks go. Again, I'm not trying to fill them in or anything like that. I want to make sure there's plenty of light in between them. I do want that colour to stand out later on. Well, I say later on. This shouldn't take too long. No. Now, if you want the outline drawing and reference photograph for this project, you'll find it on my Patreon channel. So it's well worth looking on there and taking a peek. When you get down to this area, note the length of the lines, the curvature of the lines, and of course the angle of the lines as well. So a bit of a curve down there. So I'll put a few in to begin with like I'm doing there, look. Just a few. And then add some smaller ones, not the same length or anything like that, from that line down again, following that same curve, just to darken it slightly, only slightly, around the area there. It's quite dark in places as well, but don't put too much in there. Ease off it a little bit. Easy. Leave plenty of light to allow those colours to stand out. When you've had a break, and I always say take a break, if you've been sat at that table for half an hour or so, just stand up, look out the window, watch what the neighbours are doing, and then you can come back with those fresh eyes. You might see areas that need to be darkened slightly more, because we do need to make sure we've got the contrast on the paper, because when we add the watercolour over the top, the watercolour is just simply the colour. We're not thinking about detail then, are we? Not the way we would do if we're just using watercolours normally. With the pen and wash technique, the wash is just simply, as we know, just a watercolour over the top, but no detail. All the detail is done through the pen work we're putting on there now. The easy part is adding the colours over the top. Yeah. Then once you've got all your mid-tones and dark tones on, then you can start to add the finest marks in between here and there. Look at the shapes that you can see within the wings. Follow those curves. Don't make these lines too dark either. When you're working on a small section, just check out the shape within that one section Has it got a slight curve to it? Or is it flat? That's what you need to determine with every single area that you work on. And not forgetting the direction of those lines as well. That we know is very important. Then work your way around the face while taking your time there as well. Looking at the curves and the shapes that you can see within the face. And also take note of those lightest midtones and the darkest tones. And remember to not add too much dark in there. Try to maintain a happy balance within those tones. But we do need both dark and light and midtones. You can't have the dark without the light, can you? Or vice versa. It would look extremely boring and flat. I'll probably go too light to begin with because at least then it gives you plenty of room for adjustment as well. Because if you go too dark to begin with, well, once that ink is on the paper, you know you can't remove it. You can probably cover it over with some artificial paper. You could do that. But that could be another video, can't it? Let me know in the comments down below if that's what you want, okay? When you work around the head, just flick out those fine lines in a clockwise fashion. As you flick out, you'll end up with a tapered line as well. The tapered end being the outside part, of course. Take your time around the body as well, because there's quite a lot of different angles within the body. Some of the hairs are longer, some are shorter, some are wider, some are thinner. Some are curved. So it all varies around there. So once again, just take your time doing that and you'll be fine. Also, draw those legs nice and thin, because they're not very thick legs at all, are they? And keep looking at that reference photograph every few seconds. I've got mine in front of me on a tablet, but use an iPad, anything like that will be fine. Even a mobile phone works really well. So get your cell phone out, or your mobile phone, whatever you want to call it, and use that to be able to view your image. Yeah, it's on a smaller screen, but it just means you've got to keep zooming in and moving it around the cell. That's all. Try to keep that photograph the same size or thereabouts as your drawing as well. Otherwise you'll end up trying to draw far too much detail which isn't needed. All because I was too zoomed in on that photograph. Now when you reach the flower, very lightly sketch around the edges. Don't make it too dark though, especially the outer edge. I want the colour to stand out on there really. But we do need some basic details in there to begin with. Look at those shapes and look at the angles. And keep that pen nice and light to begin with, okay? We know we can darken it thereafter. I tend to err on the side of caution first, just to make sure that I don't go too dark too soon. Because then, as you know, once it's on the paper, there's no going back. The way I'm going to approach working on the flower is by keeping it nice and light to begin with. Very similar to the way we worked on the butterfly. We can always have the darkest marks thereafter. Because the flower is obviously very delicate, isn't it? Well, so is a butterfly as well, but you know what I mean. And we have to remember that whilst we're working on it. So remember to use the different angles with your pen, using the lightest of pressure. And once you've got those lightest tones on, without filling all those white areas in, then we can finally have the darkest lines in places over the top. But not until then. So simply work from pale all the way to the darkest pigment you can see, which within this flower, well, we know there aren't many, are there? Not really. Just gentle shades here and there. By playing with that pen and easing off the pressure when you want to get to those lighter areas. Use the techniques I've shown you, from the tiny circles to the small marks here and there, and the pressure I've mentioned with that pen, and you'll get there. Another little tip as well, is try not to put a dark outline all the way around the image, because then it can look a little bit cartoony if you do that. So personally I would avoid that. Some of the edges can be nice and pale, which you'll see around parts of the flower and also the stem. So just use the side of the pen when you do that. And keep them lines nice and pale, but we can still see them, you know. That's all you need to do. Right, a few little marks down the stem on the right hand side. Slightly darker. A bit too dark there, but it'll do. Just ease off the pressure of the pen and lower that pen down like I've shown you. I'm trying to get a bit of a curve here. And we can do, as we follow that line, and gradually work your way in towards the middle, easing off the pressure. You can probably hear that, but that's more the metal on the tip of this pen that's making that noise than anything else at the moment. because then I can very carefully lift that pen up slightly more to get just a touch more ink off that nib. A round curve, that's all we're after. Bit of a tube-like, because it is a tube, isn't it, really? Yeah. Have one last check around, make sure you've not missed anything. For example, I've just noticed down here, that this needs to be darker, but also I need to make it gradually get lighter as it comes away from that edge by flicking up. Following those lines all the time. This edge here is dark, just there. It lightens a little bit there, then goes darker there. Again, fade it slightly as it goes in towards the flower, just to blend it. It's amazing I can blend with a pen, isn't it? And I think that will do for the drawing out stage. So now what we need to think about doing is mixing those colours. Now before we even consider mixing any colours, we need to make sure we get all that pencil off the paper. And what I tend to do, put that away a minute, get myself a dust-free eraser. This is one by Faber-Castell. Make sure everywhere is nice and dry. Now the beauty about waterproof pens is that they do very often dry very quickly. So I know with confidence, yeah right, that down here the pen should be nice and dry, of which it is. You know also when you missed areas, I've just missed one area there with my pen, just a hint of a line around there with a lightest touch. So work your way around, erase any pencil off the paper. We don't really want the pencil on the paper because if you leave it on there, it will then mix with the paint and it could dullen and darken that paint down. So keep it nice and pale. And then we can think about mixing those colours. Let's make a start on the colours. Now we don't need that many colours, do we really? We need the colours obviously for the butterfly. And that's like, I know, like an orangey, browny, yellowy colour. Is that the right way of describing it? Well, something like that anyway. I'm going to use a size 00 brush. Quite a small one as you can see. Okay, let's give this a try. And all I want to do is very lightly go over those areas that need this colour. Just here. Just paint over the top, as simple as that. Look very carefully at that reference photograph, work out where the colours go. Or in this case, this one colour at the moment, there's one mix. A triple mix as well. Got a stipple just around the edges of that as well, just to break it up a little bit in places. Remember, we're not painting details at this stage. We've already done all of that with the pen, so we no longer need details. I missed some details over the top of there. Look, if I want to add some more pen in there, I can, once it's nice and dry first though. So you can use the pen over the top of the paint. If you find it's going on too thick, just water it down slightly. All I need to do with that, just put a drop of water, just one will do, in my mix because there's not a great deal there. It's still not a watery consistency, but it's certainly thick enough. Did you know this little beauty, as I mentioned, comes out around April, something like that, April, June time. It loves the sunshine, as lots of butterflies tend to do. That's when we see most of our butterflies around the village, when it's sunny. Chalky areas on the edge of woodlands very often as well. And believe it or not, industrial wasteland. Really? Ugh. No thank you. But I do like basking on bare ground as well. As with many insects, these little butterflies are very territorial, very often engaging in dog fights, of all things. Why on earth would it fight a dog? Now, every layer of this paint that you apply will get richer and richer and darker and darker. So be careful with that. Sometimes you might think, oh, I want it a little bit richer than that. Let it dry or give it a quick blast with a hairdryer. And then go over the top again with the same mixture, which will then enrich that colour one more time. But do it too many times, it will become too dark that you can't see the pen work underneath. So just trying to get it just about right, really. What you think is about right anyway. Even though we've done a reasonably detailed drawing, it doesn't necessarily need to be detailed, not at all. Here's another little factoid for you for this amazing butterfly. Did you know that the species is in decline in the UK, and is now considered a priority species in some areas. And I must admit, I've never seen one. Not a grizzled skipper. I've seen other skippers, but not this particular one. That could be to do with all sorts of things going on in our world, which would most likely include habitat loss. So there you go, there's a little factoid for you. Now once again, if you wanted to, once this is dry, I'd go over the top of some of these areas again to enrich that colour. But I think for now, that will do for the butterfly. So we need some violet, don't we? We do. I think I'll make a little bit more up than I need in this case because I want to make sure I've got the mixture about right. You know what? What, Paul? I'm going to make another one of these up in a minute. I'm going to put a small amount of blue in that mixing well as well. You'll see why in a minute. As you can probably tell, I've got a brand new half pan in there at the moment. Well, just about new anyway. Pop that in there. And that'll start to turn that colour in more of a sort of violety colour. At the moment, it's still too blue. Too blue, baby. And a little bit more. Until we get it about right. And keep comparing this to your reference photograph as well. I think, that will do for that one colour. So I'm going to do the same again, but this time I'm going to put a little bit more upper rose on this side. Okay, first thing to do, grab some of your darkest colour. Hope it's not too dark. You can always test it first if you need to. I'm going to go straight onto the paper. I'm going to be daring, I know. Mad, barn potty. Then pop it on the paper. I've got a bit more blue in there. I think it's not quite blue enough. I'll get it right eventually. I really will. The more pigment you add into your mixture, the thicker it's going to get. So remember to kind of thin it back down a little bit more with just a touch of water. Just a touch. What you can do, you can wet one area first of all. Show you another way, look. Just to dampen it. Probably over the top there as well, bit of colour left on there. Then drop your colour onto the wet paper, and that will allow that colour to blend as it hits the paper there. Look at that, lovely. Grab some of this without even bothering to wash the brush out. Drop that in as well. Whoops, a bit more. Go on, be daring. What are you like? Just a touch, it just varies it a little bit there, doesn't it? And a little bit more around there. There you go, that's one side. And there's a variation of colour within there, isn't there? That's what I quite like about that. So I'm going to work my way around the flower now, doing the same thing. But I'm not going to paint this section down here just yet. And the reason why is because I don't want that to blend into this one. That section's got to be dry first. So work away from anywhere that's still wet. So I can still work on that one there if I need to, and start working down here. Now this petal you can see is more or less this colour, isn't it? Just a hint of the more bluey version within the right hand side of the petal. So dampen it first with preferably a clean brush. Not. Let the water soak into the paper just for half a minute or so. Not even that sometimes. Depends on how warm your room is, to be honest. And then you can drop the colours over the top. Okay, give it a dry, and we'll work on the other petals that we're not painted yet. The ones that we can't touch while the areas around it are still wet. Okay, 1 second. Now if you're watching this on YouTube, please do me one huge favour. What's that, Paul? Now if you do like this video, please subscribe to my channel because it really helps me, it really does. Every person that subscribes, free of charge of course, will help boost my YouTube channel that little bit more. The more like-minded people like ourselves can watch the videos and hopefully, fingers crossed anyway, they can learn from them. So please do that, subscribe and also click on that like button, just as a thank you. Thank you. All this is nice and dry, so now for the stem. Again, you don't need a great deal of it really. That just dullens it down a little bit. Just looking at the colour now and thinking it just needs brightening up a little bit. Just a touch, probably a little bit more than the reference photograph I think. I don't want it too dull. So carrying on with my size 00 brush, you can use a size 1 if you want or size 2. As long as you've got a decent tip on the brush, you can do all of this with that. So dampen anything that's green. I want to do it in stages though. So work on these two areas first of all. Drop the colour in. Just to colour it slightly. As you know, we've already done the detail work, so just the colour we're looking for now. And once again, you might want to put a second layer over the top in places though. Not everywhere. Just try to vary the tone of that green. If you apply a little bit thicker, or more condensed in, say, one area like that, will then start to give you a bit more shape to it as well. The more you allow the water to dry on the paper, the less the paint will spread, and because of that, you'll be able to control it better as well. When you add the green onto the stem, what you want to do is work on the right hand side first of all, and then allow it to blend itself across the stem. If it doesn't blend, use a damp clean brush and small amounts of gentle persuasion, just to tease it across a little bit. You're trying to achieve a round feel to it. If it's too much, then all you need to do is wash that brush out and use a semi-dry brush to lift off a little bit of paint on that left hand side. That should lighten it enough then. What you need to create a little bit more shape. I've got plenty more pen and wash tutorials for you to watch. If you fancy having a go at another one, have a look to the link to the top right hand corner of the screen, that one just up there, look. And you see what I mean, okay? Hopefully, I'll see you there. Bye.